So let's look at deploying some of the microservices we're going to use for the WeatherBot example. So we're going to start with the location to lat long service, and this is going to allow us to do looking at locations, latitude and longitudes from kind of addresses that a user provides, right? So it's a little JavaScript function, again implements the interface and makes an API call to Google's geocoding API to do the address lookups and returns the user the physical location in the world. So we can deploy that to OpenWhisk really easily. We create a new action called location to lat long, and then we can see that it's been deployed. And now we can invoke it on demand. We're going to pass in the parameter address, which is it expecting for Lviv in the Ukraine. And hopefully we should get back the physical location in the world. Right? So there we go. We can see there's a latitude, longitude, and hopefully that is correct for the city of Lviv in the Ukraine. So we've got our first microservice already deployed. Let's have a look at the other one. So this is forecast from lat long. And we'll take a location and hopefully return as a kind of text description of the forecast for the weather in the next 24 hours. And again, uses a third-party API for weather forecasts and kind of wraps that up with the interface that OpenWhisk expects. And so we can then easily deploy this to OpenWhisk and have another kind of serverless function running on demand. So we say WSK whisk action create, we call it forecast from lat long, pass it the code. And that's going to upload our code and deploy it to the cloud. And then we can invoke it on demand, right? So we need to pass in the location and also the username and password for the API that we're going to call, right? We don't want to embed that in the code. We pass it in at runtime. So I'm going to use the location for Lviv, that city I've just retrieved in the Ukraine. And actually I've got it wrong, right? So the lat and long should be the other way around. It should be lat of 49 and long of 24. So let me just quickly change that. And now if I invoke it, right, I can see the result from that. So there we go, right? Hopefully that should be the weather forecast at the moment for that city. So it's clear, low overnight in the upper 40s. Now obviously I probably don't want to be passing in the API credentials with every single request. So one of the things you can do with OpenWhisk is bind what they call default credentials. So these get kind of bound to the package, so I don't need to include them within the request, but I don't need to also include those within the kind of microservice code itself. So we can do this by updating our action, right? So all we have to do is give it the parameters that we want to bind as kind of default parameters. And we're going to take my username and password, which I've got an environment variable. And now we can invoke this action, and we don't have to pass in the username or the password, right? We can just pass in the location, the latitude, and the longitude. Okay, so that worked, right? We got the same forecast back, but this time I wasn't kind of passing in the username and password. So that's the first two services, right? We've got location lookups, we've got forecasts. The next thing I need to do is integrate with Slack. I want to be able to post that forecast into the Slack channel that I use for weather. And Slack's got some really nice integrations. So here's my weather channel, and in Slack it has webhooks. So what webhooks allow you to do is have a URL that you can post some JSON to, and it will kind of convert that into a channel message. So I've begun to set one up for my Slack channel, right? It's going to be in the weather channel. So anytime I post some data to the URL below, it's automatically going to turn up in that Slack channel as a message from a bot. So I can copy that URL and use that to make that async HTTP call to post the data to that. Now again, one of the things I want to do here, right, is I could write another service myself to be able to handle this, but OpenWhisk comes with a number of packages built in for integrating with third-party systems, and it actually comes with integration for Slack. So I can see what packages are built in using the packages command with the key whisk.system, and I can see there's already a package for Slack, so we can have a look at what's in that. So I can get the summary for the package and see what the kind of actions and feeds it contains. And we can see there's already an action that's installed that allows me to do this kind of webhook integration. So I can just invoke that without having to do any code. It's running in the system. I copy the identifier, I pass in the URL for the webhook that I want to post to, and I'm going to pass in some text, which is the channel message. And hopefully, if I invoke that, it should pop up in Slack. There we go, right, it was a little bit slow, but there we go, right, we've got an action that can post messages into Slack and do that integration. I hadn't had to write any of that code myself. Now, I wanted to modify the kind of the emoji that it uses in the title, so I've actually copied the action previously into my local workspace and I have it registered as a webhook, and I've kind of bound some default parameters to change some of the things like the emoji in the title. Which means that I can now invoke my webhook action, which is the Slack package, and all I have to pass in is the text, no URL and nothing like that, and we've got our little weather bot emoji. So there we go, right? So we've kind of implemented our 3 services, right? We've got address lookups, we've got forecasts, we've got integration with Slack. What I want to do now is kind of join those services together to create my weather bot. I want to be able to take an address and post the forecast for that address automatically into Slack, calling each of those services in turn. And I could write some code to do this myself, but OpenWhisk comes with a kind of neat feature of the platform called sequences, which actually allows you to do this. It allows you to create new actions that are simply the output of multiple actions combined together. So you think a bit like this, like Unix pipes, where you have one command that runs multiple commands kind of in parallel or in sequence. So I can see I've got my actions installed, so I can create a new action and pass the sequence parameter. And then literally just give it the names of the other actions that I want to call in order, right? And the output from one will be passed as the input to the other. So first I want to call my location lookups, then I want to call the forecast service, and then I want to call my webhook integration. And then I can invoke location forecast, and all I have to pass in is the input to the first service, the address. And hopefully we should then see the forecast for Lviv in the Ukraine pop up in my channel. So there we go, right? You can see the little notification, and we've now got a new kind of microservice that implements my weather bot, which joins all of those 3 services together.